Neotropical fauna is characterized by an astonishing wealth of species, but strangely enough, has very few really large mammals. Almost 70 million years ago, the first marsupials and placentals emigrated to South America from the north through the Isthmus of Panama and colonized the continent. Later, the isthmus sank partially, isolating this group of animals. However, archipelagos of islands more or less connected by strips of sea allowed the passage of the Lemuroidea, the ancestors of present-day monkeys, and primitive semi-aquatic rodents. Rodents adapted quickly to their new environment, and thanks to the plasticity that characterizes this biological group, attained highly different forms, the most outstanding of which is gigantism, observed only in South America. Survivors of this group of giants in Venezuela are the paca and agouti in wooded zones, the porcupine, adapted to life in trees, and the capybara, an authentic native of the plains. Classifying the capybara in the animal kingdom was a problem for early naturalists such as Linnaeus, who erroneously related it to the pig. The capybara is now classified in the order of rodents and belongs to a family of which it is the sole member. The genus is distributed from the Panama Canal down to Argentina, east of the Andean Range. In Venezuela's western plains, we find the species Hydrochaeris hydrochaeris, while in the Maracaibo Lake area we find the same species that exists in Panama, the Hydrochaeris isthmius. These are some of the names given to the capybara in South America. In Apure State, Venezuela, those that have just reached an adult size are called by a local name translated as fire red. Without a doubt, the capybara is an uncommon animal, and its weight of more than 100 pounds makes it the largest rodent in the world. It looks robust and has somewhat short extremities. Its forelegs have 4 toes, while its hind legs have 3 joined by a membrane that allows them to swim long distances, as this robust male is demonstrating. The capybara's fur is not thick, is yellowish-reddish in color, and grows darker as the animal ages. Its neck is short, its head voluminous, its snout high and truncated. Its eyes and nasal orifices are protruding and are set in the upper part of the head, an adaptation related to its aquatic habits. We distinguish the adult male by a hump on its snout. It is a cluster of glands whose secretion has a communication function, probably having to do with the animal's territory and status. The capybara has another gland situated on both sides of the anus, which is well developed in both sexes. Its function has not been precisely determined, though it appears to be related to identifying the group's members. Here we observe an individual marking vegetation with its hump and anal gland. Capybaras abound more in tropical plains and always live close to the water. Its natural habitat is lagoons and channels surrounded by savanna, where it is easy to get the pasture it feeds on, commonly known as capybara straw, though it consumes several types of fodder. The species tolerates the total lack of natural shade, though it can also live in woody areas if food is available on the riverbanks or in the lower woods. They can be seen mainly on the cattle ranches of Apure and Barinas states, sharing their habitat with the herds, Where conservation is practiced, the capybara populations are similar in number to those of cattle. Naturalists of the last century, such as Humboldt, indicated that the crocodile and jaguar were the capybara's main predators. Nowadays, they are no longer a threat because of the drastic reduction of their populations. The adult is practically without enemies, and survival is limited by natural diseases, hunting, and the annual slaughter for commercial purposes. Insect bites, which become infected at the beginning of the rainy season and affect a significant part of the population, are tolerated by a large majority through the use of mud as a preventive factor. In addition, members of the herd have been observed licking sores caused by these parasites, which leads us to presume the presence of substances that relieve or cure these wounds. The newly born and very young may be easy prey for caracaras, vultures, crocodiles, anacondas, pumas, and ocelots. Immediately after birth, and until they learn to swim, they run the risk of being isolated from the herd. On this occasion, the little one was lucky. His mother was at hand to avoid an accident. The appropriate nod of her head made him return to the bank. It is now early June, and we are in Apure State at the start of the rainy season, or winter, as it is known in Venezuela. After an intense summer drought of more than 6 months, the environment seems to be awakening from its slumber with the early rains. As happens with other species, the capybara appears to revive with the coming of the rains. Perhaps because of its size, the rounded shape of its body, and the heat of the plains, it must spend several hours a day in the water. Being social animals that depend totally on the aquatic environment for their survival, it is only natural that they establish territories around the lagoons, which are defended aggressively by all the adult members of the herds. It has been observed that these territories, covering some 25 acres, vary very little in shape or size for at least 3 years. Though pasture abounds in the plains, it is not the most nutritious food because most of it is made up of cellulose fibers and other components that are difficult to digest. Wild animals such as deer and domestic ones such as goats and cattle have solved their problem thanks to bacteria present in a compartment of their stomachs which degrades the cellulose. In the case of the capybara, the bacteria that helps them to digest cellulose are in a part of the intestine known as the blind tract, which constitutes 75% of their digestive tract. It is located at the end of the latter, and because of this, they must re-ingest their feces to take advantage of the work of their symbiont bacteria, a process known as coprophagy. That is why it spends mornings in seeming inactivity, only recycling its food to make the most of the pasture eaten the night before. The grouping of organisms in temporary or permanent associations is a phenomenon commonly seen in the animal kingdom. Capybaras live in herds, like other large herbivorous animals that inhabit open spaces such as tropical savannas. Theirs are not temporary or circumstantial associations, but very clearly defined social units. They have a dominant male capable of displacing the other males in the group and doing most of the mating. 2 or 3 subordinate males are also permanent members with a rigid scale of dominance among them. Each is capable of displacing those below him on the scale, while he in turn is displaced by his superior. As we can see, dominance is established and maintained through ritualized aggressive exchanges with little violence, though there is an evident winner. Nevertheless, the loser manages not to be completely excluded from the group and flees in circles so as not to wander too far from the herd. The hierarchy is so stable that it may hold for several years, the result being that a large proportion of male capybaras never become dominant in a group. Subordinate males spend a lot of their time on the fringes of the herd, and since they are more exposed, are more vigilant, thus benefiting both the dominant male and the females with their cries of warning. Marking territory is another form of ritualized interaction. The dominant male has the most developed hump and most frequently marks the vegetation of the group's territory, also using his anal gland as we indicated before. Subordinates appear to be more cautious about marking, since they are seen smelling the vegetation before doing so. The group's females, about 5 or 6, though seemingly more passive, are the binding element of this small society. They share the rearing of the young by suckling indiscriminately any that approach them. Certain females are often observed with a large following of young, which leads local inhabitants to overestimate the size of broods and the reproductive capacity of the species. The gregarious instinct is so strong that at a given moment the young follow any adult in the group. At the beginning of the rainy season, the females come into heat. Capybara courtship is a prolonged ritual. The female begins to be pressed by the dominant male. She moves away, entering and leaving the water several times. At some point, and always in the water, the female stops and lets the male mount her, which takes place frequently and for short periods of time. Copulating in the water is probably done because of the animal's weight and the smaller possibility of attack by predators. The dominant male copulates many times with several females, but cannot displace the subordinates completely, and thus prevent them from doing the same. Five months later, toward the end of the rainy season, the young are born, an average of 4 for each female. They are extremely precocious. They are born with their eyes open, can walk and eat pasture a few hours after birth. Birth at this time allows them to enjoy abundant pasture, and more important, to be better protected against possible predators by thicker vegetation. Soon, the summer or dry season begins, and the numerous young must learn to fend for themselves in order to survive. At this time, large flocks of birds like these ducks can be seen. As the dry season progresses, the lagoons shrink significantly, and little by little the capybaras concentrate around them until reaching groups of 50 members or more. They appear to save energy by moving as little as possible. Territorial behavior drops in the morning rest periods. Their regime is limited to grazing in the afternoon and at night, resting in the morning, and refreshing themselves at midday. The young must face a period of serious difficulties. If they manage to survive, they will be adults at the age of 1 year. When a new brood is born, these young ones, almost adults, will abandon their group and search for a place to establish themselves, usually following a subordinate male who will become dominant in the new group. Herons, cattle, and the llanero have traditionally been the symbolic elements of Venezuela's plains. But the capybara is undoubtedly the most authentic representative inhabitant of this region. Sometimes it is little appreciated, and even the object of negative beliefs that hold it responsible for transmitting numerous diseases and depriving cattle of pasture. The truth is that after many years devoted to studying its biology and behavior, we still have much to learn and discover about it, to give the capybara its rightful place as a fundamental element of the fauna of Venezuela's plains.
Thank you.